Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. I'm just sitting here in my robe drinking my morning coffee looking sexy as hell as usual. And for those of you who say I don't look sexy as hell in my robe, nobody cares what you think. I didn't ask you shit. Alright, it is once again Monday and it is time for the Monday Q&As. And the overwhelming response to my video yesterday about the bicep shot is that most of my subscribers would like me to keep it because it's my signature. So hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot before I get started. And let's get right into these questions. Alright, first question. Is there any benefit to locking out on bench press for a bodybuilder, or would it be better to not lock out? Well, this is kind of a tricky question because most natural bodybuilders are going to want to use some sort of nonlinear periodization or undulating rep system, which means they're going to want to do power work. And by skipping the lockout on their bench press, they're potentially going to hurt their overall numbers and their power, and it's going to detrain explosiveness on their bench for their power days. But on the other hand, there is good reason to believe that doing the bottom 2/3 to 3/4 of the movement on a bench press keeps better tension on the pecs, particularly if you have good scapular retraction. And if you're using a lot of gear and you're using mostly high reps and not power work to build your hypertrophy, that's a very valid method. But for people who are using mixed training like I recommend, I would say go ahead and lock your bench press and use it mainly as a power movement. But for things like your dumbbells, to where you really are able to get a deeper stretch at the bottom and get that myotatic reflex with the dumbbells, maybe for your dumbbell presses for your chest, go ahead and skip the lockout and just work the bottom 2/3 of the movement on those and really focus on that stretch at the bottom. And go ahead and consider for most of your bench press work locking it out, other than you maybe occasional back off sets to where you just kind of rep out after you do your heavier work. In which case you could probably skip the lockout and just work on keeping continual tension. Alright, next question. Thoughts on CrossFit, especially with regards to its training protocols? A lot of people have been wanting me to discuss CrossFit, and I'm going to say that with CrossFit, I'm a fan of some of what they do, and I'm not a fan of some of the other things they do. But the thing is, it really varies from box to box. And I have an aunt who is very, very involved in CrossFit, who is actually in her 60s now, and she deadlifts about 250 pounds as a 63-year-old woman, which is pretty good. And so I've talked to her quite a bit about this. Now, my big concerns are that obviously kind of the cult-like behavior, and where people seem to, that you see exhibited quite a bit by people who do CrossFit, is kind of absurd, because at the end of the day it's just training and it's not superior. But understanding really what CrossFit is difficult for some people to grasp, but as someone with kind of a powerlifting background, I think I kind of understand where they're coming from. Whereas in most powerlifting is going to be something like 80% power work, 20% GPP work. CrossFit is just switching those around. It's generally 80% GPP work, 20% true strength and power work. Which for the average Joe trying to get into shape and just who wants good conditioning, that's a pretty good thing. And I would say I do like the fact that they push people away from traditional cardio for their conditioning and endurance, and they have them do GPP work to get into shape, which is generally going to be superior for people concerned with body composition. Now, the concern that I have, the real negatives I see are that a lot of the boxes, the form that they use is just horrific. But you go to other ones and they have actual coaches who really, really push technique and form, even when they're doing this fairly high rep Olympic stuff. So it really depends on where they're doing their CrossFit and determining if it's a good or bad system. And if they're letting you use piss poor form for any sort of weight movements, then it's a piece of shit and you need to leave that box. But if they're actually instructing good form, good technique, it's probably okay. You'll probably get in pretty good shape safely. But that's usually what we see the most of. Now, I don't really understand the focus on Olympic lifts, because I don't think they're that good for people who don't really Olympic lift. There are better movements that require less learning curve of the technique. They could get the same benefit, but I would still rather see people do GPP work on Olympic lifts than I would to see them run on a treadmill to try to get into shape. So there's pros and cons with CrossFit. And I think as far as it being a good or a bad thing, I think it's really going to depend on the individuals who are coaching it and what they are actually teaching people and having them do. But guys, you got to stop doing those kipping pull-ups, because honestly that's the silliest shit I've ever seen. I would say that's the worst thing about CrossFit. That's a complete waste of time. Alright, next question. How do you plan your diet to be able to compete in the 90 kilo meet? I.e., what's your macros and what strategies will you use on your way to your goal? What I'm going to do initially is try to drop a fair amount of body fat quickly. Obviously I'm not going to drop water weight, because to anybody who's looking, it's pretty obvious that I am blasting wet right now, even though I'm in a caloric deficit, because I'm holding a lot of water weight. So for me, my goal is to basically just strip body fat away so that when I do drop water weight, I can basically just drop down to 90 kilos in 2 weeks anytime I want. But I don't really have a set game plan. I basically am just cutting for now, ultra high protein. I'm sitting at about 4,000 calories. I'm down to 230 already, so I'm down 10 pounds on 4,000 calories a day. And I will just gradually lower calories as needed while keeping protein high. Eventually I will have to start having days with lower and lower calories. I'll probably incorporate refeeds as needed, and what I will do is just slowly work my way down to close to 200 pounds. But I'm going to have to just use different strategies as I go and assess it week by week. And if I'm losing strength instead of gaining it, I'll have to adjust my macros, because I am a strength athlete. And so I don't have a set game plan for that. And keep in mind, guys, and I will point out again, don't necessarily assume that what I'm doing for this strategy is going to work for you, because I am prepping for untested powerlifting meets. So keep that in perspective. Alright, next question. My sister really wants to change from grossly obese to healthy and active. Thoughts on a starting point? Quite frankly, at this point, I wouldn't even say that you need to have her count calories or anything. Simply add a lot more fruits and vegetables and lean protein into her diet so that she is more full on that and cuts back on the junk. If she's grossly obese, you may not even need to track calories to strip the first 20 or 30 pounds off. And it's going to become important after that, but mainly just getting her eating more satiating food with more fiber and more protein. Number 2, get her active. She needs to start taking walks around the block, extra walking every single day, a minimum of 30 minutes of walking every day. And as far as resistance training, she needs to start focusing on just doing body weight movements or assisted body weight movements that she can do. If she can't do a squat, she can hold onto the back of a chair and squat. If she can't do a push-up, she can do push-ups on her knees. Start doing core work, just basic general body weight movements, just to get used to moving and to get some resistance work in. And that's where I would start, is with those things. Then as she starts to make progress and wants to continue, then put her on a structured resistance training program and a diet to where she starts actually tracking calories. But at first, to lose that first 20 or 30 pounds, if you're pretty obese, it doesn't require anything special. It's purely a matter of eating more satiating food, more protein, more fiber, drinking more water, and actually getting up and being active. And that will strip the first 20 to 30 pounds of fat off somebody who's grossly obese. And then once they start to stall a little bit, then you start actually incorporating real strategies that most people would use who aren't necessarily obese, who are trying to get into shape. All right, last question. I've been thinking about starting a cycle of whey protein. What PCT should I use? You know, what I think I'm going to do with this one, guys, I'm going to try to answer this one in the way that the expert we have on YouTube on protein metabolism, because we have a PhD on YouTube, I'm not going to say his name, who has a PhD in nutrition and specializes in protein metabolism. And so this is really his area. And here's how I think he would answer it. Okay, guys. Now, I have a PhD, and I need to let you know that right up front. And this advice really isn't sponsored by in any way by Civation. But I think that if you're going to cycle whey protein, You need to have a minimum of 3 servings of it every day in order to get the leucine content you need for anabolic drive. And the other thing that you really need, you need more leucine feedings throughout the day to get the most out of your whey protein. So what I would recommend is a product by Scivation called Extend, and you're going to want to take that another 3 times a day between your meals and between your protein shakes. And I know this because I have a PhD, so you should listen to me. Now, when you finish the cycle of the whey protein and you want to go ahead and come off of it for a while, what I would recommend for the PCT is to double your servings of the Extend so that you get extra leucine 6 times a day. So you're going to want to take 6 servings of leucine every single day between your meals. And that's going to give you the most anabolic drive due to leucine timing. And that's going to help you get that extra just 0.5% edge as a natural bodybuilder. And again, I know this because I am a natural bodybuilder, and in case I didn't tell you, I have a PhD. So that's how you should cycle your whey protein, and that's how you should do your PCT. It should be 6 servings of Extend by Scivation every single day. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you next time.